Hey, welcome to the Infinity Bros Podcast, the only podcast that is perfectly balanced as all things should be. I'm your host, Max Mosier, here today, wherever you're listening, however you're listening. Thanks for making us part of your podcast experience. I am not alone today. I am here with one other of our six Infinity Bros. It's Infinity Bro Zayne. Zayne, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about some stuff. And yeah, like we were talking about in the pre-show, like I don't know if this happens too often of just a show of me and you. So excited. We're breaking barriers.
We're breaking barriers. We're doing an early review because of the Super Bowl this week. Eagles versus Chiefs. We talked about this on the pre-show, but tell the audience, who do you got this week for the Chiefs and Eagles matchup?
I'm taking the Chiefs. It's a
Okay.
toss-up. Could go either way. I won a good game, but I'm going Chiefs.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we're going to move on from it because I know a lot of people out there, some nasally breathers listening to the pod right now, getting a little hot and bothered that we'd even bring up sports. So there you go.
That's fine.
That's all it is. That's all it is. I will ask one Super Bowl related question, but it doesn't have to do with the sport. It has to do with the commercials. Are you expecting any big commercials this weekend for any specific movies or TV shows? Obviously, we had the Fast 10 trailer just show up. Like, are you looking for a Marvel trailer this weekend? There's been rumors that Guardians of the Galaxy will have another one. Maybe, the Secret Invasion show. Are you maybe looking for a Flash trailer of that hot mess for DC? What are you looking for this weekend, Zane?
Uh, yeah. I mean, it could be any of those mentioned above. I think, yeah, another we're gonna get glimpses, I think, probably of another Quantumania. I don't know if we're gonna get anything for Guardians of the Galaxy or anything further. We'll probably get something for the Hot Mess Flash. The only other
Maybe the
thing,
Marvels, too. They could do the Marvels.
you think so?
Or do they hold
I,
out on that and wait till the next movie
I guess I,
afterwards?
I guess I don't know how many spots they have, but I
Sure.
feel like you want to prep what's going on right now. I don't know if we're gonna get anything further because it's just like you haven't heard anything, but at the same time, maybe that's the best way of doing it. The fact you haven't heard anything could be telling.
Fair.
The only bit that I have on that's been teased, that's not really comic book related, but supposedly we're going to be getting a tease of from PlayStation with the release of their PlayStation VR 2 that they're making the new God of War Ragnarok and I believe Event
Ooh.
Horizon are coming out supposedly are going to have VR versions,
Well, there you
and
go.
some people have said that that might get a commercial, so that would be kind of cool to see.
I mean, it's the Super Bowl. As long as you're willing to pay
Right.
$10 million for 30 seconds, you can put it on there. They don't care.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
They don't care. Yeah. You can hear more about what we thought about the Super Bowl and all that stuff if you're interested in listening to us talk about that and some Quantum Mania predictions. We did that before the show. We do a little Patreon 30-minute pre-show that you can check out. We talk about Super Bowl prop bets. We do dive a little into the sports stuff. If that's not your jam, I wouldn't suggest this episode. But if it is, you get to hear from us. It's good. We got a jam-packed show for you today. We're talking about The Last of Us episode 5. It got released early. Oh my gosh, today is Saturday. So yesterday, days are hard. And so we're going to talk about episode 5 today, Endure and Survive. And then we're going to close the show out with some little bits in regards to DC and Marvel rumors coming up. One big rumor in particular we'll talk about that we'll highlight that I know we will be marketing is who is potentially the big bad for the Secret Wars storyline. There are rumors of who that person is and who that actor will be, and it will shock you. So make sure you stick around to the end. But you did not come here for that. You came here for The Last of Us Endure and Survive, the fifth episode of the series on HBO Max. Zane, you have yet to be on for an episode of The Last of Us review. Or were you on episode 1? I take that back. You're
I
on
was on
episode
episode
1.
one.
Forgive me. So
Jeez.
you were on episode 1, Zane. I apologize. But you haven't been on since. Before we dive into your thoughts, Zane, I want to make sure that we get people familiar with our rating system because I'm going to ask you some rating questions. So real quick, I'm going to put the rating bumper right here. And then just to kind of, I'm just going to do a blanket right now because I feel like some things that happened today maybe need to get referenced. I'm just going to put a spoiler bumper right now. I'm just going to get out of the way in case we slip up on anything. We will do a non-spoiler section, but we're not going to do a non-spoiler section. I'm going to edit this out. We're going to go ahead and review this. So I'm just going to go ahead and say This is your spoiler warning. If you don't want to know anything about the show from this point on, pause, come back. We'll talk about it more. This is your spoiler warning. All right, Zane, I got those out of the way. I just had to get those pleasantries done. From episodes 2 to 5, like where were you, or 2 to 4, excuse me, where were you sitting coming into episode 5? Because I know episode 1, you were really hyped about it. You really liked where they were going. Did you still have the warm fuzzies after 4 episodes? What was your rating?
Oh, absolutely. Through 4 episodes, like I don't. Yeah, it's exceeded my expectations. Like you've expected kind of an episode to kind of that drop to be like, this hasn't. But like every episode that I've come in, like, yeah, there's some you're like, oh, maybe this could have been a little different or this, but you're just like, every episode has met my expectations of what I've like wanted to see, what it needed for, your story building, action, whatever flavor they were kind of going for, they've hit well on. So for me, just every episode, it's been on point. It's been, what I've wanted it to be. And so, yeah, I was very excited to get 5. Yeah, we got it early. So yeah, it felt like this week was a little that extra special. It's like, my goodness, we got 2 episodes in 1 week. It's a little
Sure.
treat.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So yeah, just going into 5, like I was ready. And yeah, like I said, it's been meeting expectations. I knew going in that this was going to get in some of the heavy content because I knew kind of where
Sure.
it's at in the story. But yeah, no, everything is it's met where I've needed to be, and so yeah, it's been wonderful.
Yeah, I haven't been on for a couple episodes. I haven't been on for a couple episodes, but I'm really thrilled with the direction the show has gone. I was kind of lackluster with episode 3 because I felt in that episode, and you can go back and hear this review, but just quick broad strokes was I felt that focused too much on Frank and Bill, and
Yeah,
we needed more time with Ellie and Joel. And I feel like they've really made up for that since that episode. Like it
yeah,
felt to me since I watched that episode, they heard that criticism and said, "We got you. Don't worry about it." And it's
right,
just been that way ever since. Like anytime I've had a criticism of this show, it feels like the next episode they're in my head and they're taking care of it, which I just love.
right,
And yeah, I loved episode 4. I give it a 6 out of 6. It was very, very strong. And I was just over the moon to come into this. I actually got to watch it on the plane on Tuesday because I was traveling for
nice.
work. And to get 2 episodes in the course of 72 hours has been such a joy for me. Not going to lie to you. I've really been a fat and happy cat on the subject. This episode was directed by Jeremy Webb. He actually directed last episode. I want to pause just on that piece of note. There's no way this guy is not doing like a big time show after this.
Right, this has
He's
got
going
to
to be
put
a
his
full.
name on the map.
This is his. Take a bow, Jeremy Webb. You're the guy. This is these 2 episodes, in my opinion, are the best episodes of the series so far. He is known for Masters of Sex,
Oh, oh,
Downton Abbey,
what?
The Umbrella Academy,
Oh,
Altered Carbon,
okay, okay.
Runaways,
Oh,
The Punisher TV show,
okay.
Legion, and Fear the Walking Dead. And for some people, they might be familiar with Elementary, as well as you're going way back there now. We're starting to get deeper into there. Doctor Who Confidential. Like this guy's been around the block.
Stick
Jeremy
around the.
Webb. Yeah, when I watched this episode, and this is why I started this way, I was like, oh, Jeremy Webb, that guy's gonna be famous for sure. No. He's already famous.
He's already famous in
Big time.
everything.
Yeah.
That dude doesn't
Big
stick
time
with
British
one
director.
genre.
Yeah, man. Lock and Key. I don't watch Lock and Key, but I know there's a
It was
huge fan
good.
base out there for it. I really tip my hat to this guy. This is a really impressive resume, and it showed in this episode and last episode for sure. Behind the camera, I thought he did a good job. Anything you'd add onto what I'm saying there?
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I wouldn't be able to pick him out of a crowd. Like, never even heard the name, but yeah, look at his resume and even just his work on these past 2 episodes, absolutely fantastic. Like,
It's
well
funny because
done.
I see the Punisher stuff when I watch the set piece, the action set piece that happened in this episode. We'll talk about in a bit. I when I read that earlier today, I was like, he definitely did the Punisher.
I mean, right now that that's in your head, you can see the pieces now.
Sure.
You're like, okay, I can.
Yeah.
That's why you're naming some of those off. I was like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. And the Punisher one, that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like it. gets some of those feels.
Neil Druckmann, Craig Mazin, great job as always. Bella Ramsey plays Ellie Williams, Pedro Pascal, Joel Miller, Lamar Johnson's playing Henry, Mulaney Linsky is playing Kathleen, Jeffrey Pierce is playing Perry, and then this is the debut of Kayvon Woodard, who is in fact deaf in real life. He plays the 8-year-old Sam. I believe, Zane, am I correct? My information is telling me that he's 13 in the game. Can you
Yes,
confirm that?
that is correct.
Okay,
Yeah, because he's about the same age as Ellie in the game.
sure. And obviously, this was debuted. If you're listening to this episode later, they debuted it early because the Super Bowl is happening Sunday. Incredibly wise decision by them. I think it will pay off long term because this is a strong episode, and I think people might go back and rewatch it after the Super Bowl because they're going to do it at 8 p.m. on HBO if you have HBO, if you want to check that out. Some interesting trivia, Zane. We did the spoiler review, but I wanted to share this with you because I was interested to hear maybe your game perspective. You are major gamer. You've played the game. I have not. When the bloater kills Perry, it rips his head off. This is the same way the player dies if the bloaters catch them in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I noticed that right away because yeah, it's the same, and you can watch it. It's dang near shot for shot. Because with Joel, because with Ellie, the kill sequence for Ellie is just basically just punches her. But I mean, she's just like a kid, so that makes sense. But yeah, it's the mocap of it. It's the full rips the head off, and that's how it happens in the game too. And I saw that, and I was like, that is a very cool touch. That was also included the same way it is in the game.
This was the first time in the story that a infected kid was displayed. So we had the scene where Ellie's in the car and that infected girl comes in. Do you have any recollection of that happening in the game, Zane?
I don't.
Other than Sam obviously gets infected.
Right. I don't remember that, but I mean there were, like I said, and throughout the whole series, they've been making the minor changes and different story-wise stuff. I don't remember that actually happening in the game.
I thought that was interesting. And I thought the little girl entering the car, and we'll talk about that whole set piece in a bit. It was jarring.
Oh yeah, it was creepy. The
it was
movements
jarring.
was creepy.
It was sad.
Yeah.
Everything else was it. First, I'm a dad now. I got a 4 and a 2-year-old. It's just sad now. It's not creepy. It's sad. It's weird. It's a. When I was like we talked Evil Dead, like earlier in life, that'd be freaky. Now it makes you sad. I don't know why. That's just the posture I take. And then Sam was not deaf in the original game.
Correct.
It's an added trait for the TV show, which I thought was interesting. And actually, they brought in an ASL coach for this show that Sam could work with, and Lamar Johnson and Bella Ramsey actually picked up ASL through this. Obviously, Lamar Johnson has to use this when he plays the role of Henry, but Bella Ramsey allegedly picked up on it really quickly, and they said it made a huge difference in this episode. I think it does not cross emotionally unless the ASL coach was brought in. And I think they did a really great job. I really hope to see Kayvon, Woodard back. Hope to see him back in a role in the future. He was very, very strong in this.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, even for basically not saying a word, he was very good. Let's go ahead and rate this episode. We've spoiled some parts of it, but Zane, let's start with you. On a scale of 1 to 6, you have, obviously our audience knows, has played the video game. Give us your rating of episode 5, entitled Endure and Survive.
I mean, it's a 6. 6 out of 6. Easy 6 out of 6. My favorite episode of the series so far. I think arguably the strongest episode of the series so far. Like it just... You get the touching moments that have been hinted on, or even, what you got even from episode 3, kind of like the whole the love part, and then now you kind of get this flipped on its head of where love can not always be this sweet beautiful thing, because look at what what's her name, Kathleen, or whoever the leader Kathleen is, like like she's coming after Henry because he killed her brother, but he was responsible for what he did to save his brother. And it's like there's two people coming out of love, but they're coming from two forces that ultimately are like one's wants the other one dead. And I think that kind of shows that powerful other side of that. And so you have that human thing, but then the way the episode then at the end shifts of, when the ground opens up and that truck falls through, and then you're instantly have that flooding
Right.
reminder that like there's something bigger and way worse than humans right now too. And just the absolute dread as all those the runners and then that bloater come out, and you're just like, this is just we just need to survive right now. Like we're not worried about pass or what, and it's just like it's just that instant sink in your stomach, like we just need to live. Like this is a scarier thing than people right now. And it was just like this episode hit on kind of all of those feelings and kind of brought you on that ride, and it was just so well done. So 6 out of 6. It's the best one so far for me.
6 out of 6, and I have a very difficult time seeing this episode get beaten, to be honest. You have a
Fair.
better understanding of the game, so maybe there's beats that that could be more challenging and more heartfelt. And it's fascinating. I talked about the Bill and Frank relationship and how I felt that took too much time on the screen. And I felt like you could do that while also leveraging what Ellie and Joel are doing. And then this episode did exactly that. It made Sam and Henry the focal point of the episode. Yet Joel and Ellie were very much engaged, and that was super fascinating to me. And on top of it, Mulaney Linsky is carrying this role as Kathleen. And she has to carry a very major arc in this. I have some issues with her, and I'll talk about that a little later. I'm just going to talk about that actress later, but it can't deviate from me giving this episode a 6. I mean, I don't know how anybody could walk out of this going, this is a poor episode. This is tremendous storytelling. They bamboozle you at the end of this episode into thinking everything's okay. And I just got absolutely gut punch, and I got absolutely bamboozled and hoodwinked by the bite at the end on Sam. And to watch Henry shoot him and then shoot himself was a complete foil to Frank and Bill in a good way. I felt like this was a much better way to tell that story. I felt like the Frank and Bill storyline almost romanticized suicide, and I think this was a better depiction and understanding of the pain, guilt, dread, shame that goes into that process. And I think suicide is just not a funny thing to joke about, and I think or leverage up. And I think this episode really took very strong care to do it, even to the last frame where she puts the "I'm sorry" on the pad.
Yep.
It just beautiful storytelling. And this was one where I was just like captivated from start to finish. Anytime I thought we were turning right, we turned left. I really appreciated that about this episode. It's rare right now to watch something and not have an understanding of where it's going. And I felt
Right.
this episode from start to finish did that. Additionally, I'm going to go as far as say this. I don't know how Lamar Johnson, Robbie said he's going to get a Marvel or DC role. I don't know how he doesn't get nominated for an Emmy as a guest star for this role. I think he was so good at this role, Zane. Lamar Johnson was captivating. I really hope they can bring this 28-year-old into something major, whether it's Marvel or a bigger property in a show or A24 or something. Like let's get this
Absolutely.
guy on the big screen. This is a really great actor, and I talked about Kayvon Woodard as well. Those two were tremendous. Just great job by those two. Pedro Pascal and Ellie Williams have some of the best chemistry. How does that guy make an animatronic Yoda and a 14-year-old sassy girl just the most beautiful relationship on screen? The guy is just talented.
He's just
Brilliant
magical.
actor.
He just pulls it off.
He's magic, man. He's great. And he's way more quiet in this role. Like in The Mandalorian, he's not seen. In this role, he's just not talking.
Right.
It's a lot of grunts and it's a lot of just looking at people. And I just think he crushes it.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and talk about this episode. Let's dive a little deeper into this one. After a standoff between Henry and Sam with Joel and Ellie, Henry proposes that they can escape the city using the underground tunnels. Joel hesitantly agrees. I loved how Ellie basically coordinated all this on behalf of them. If it were up to Joel, those two would have been dead. He would have shot Sam, I think. I think he's that kind of guy. I think he would do it. And what did you think about that relationship as the four of them were together in this episode? Did you enjoy them being together? Being together?
Oh, yeah, because it kind of just showed that in a way they were similar, but they were also different. Like they were, in the way Joel and Ellie are traveling, hey, we're trying to get out to Wyoming. I'm looking out for, and it's the same thing of they're hiding on the run. Same with Henry and Sam, but you're coming from the aspect of like, yeah, Henry and Sam are brothers, but at the same time, Henry's almost like that father figure to Sam as well, because just like he's just older. And so it was nice to see on screen the fact that you had two people kind of, or two groups in very similar situations, but yet the backstory and the relationship between them are very black and white. They're coming from two very different angles, but yet you see them together, and yet you still have the common goal between them. I can't hear you. You're muted on Zencaster.
There we go. I'm back.
There we
Sorry.
go.
I muted myself as I was fixing something. Max will edit this out later. I really liked Lamar Johnson's portrayal of a rat. I thought it was really good how he just played this strong role of a man who is doing everything he could to save his brother. He has got leukemia. And this is a rock and a hard place. Like this is a very difficult spot to be in as a character. You don't blame him for the decision, but then you find out what he had to do. And you find out Kathleen's motivation. And that's when the dots clicked. Because to be honest, up to that point, I was very empathetic and sympathetic to the character of Henry. I was like, this is like I'm trying to understand why she's going so ballistic here for this character. And it also plays into my thoughts on her as an actress. I'll get to her in a sec. But I really think Lamar Johnson carried this. And his scene in that kids' room that they built was so good. And Pedro Pascal has such a gift of just crossing his arms and looking and saying 10 different things while sitting back on a chair. He is so good, Zane. He is unbelievable. He's one of the best actors in our generation right now. He's just absolutely mesmerizing on the screen. And those two, their chemistry was just awesome. And Sam and Ellie were great. And I loved their relationship and how decisions made when they got to the actions fight scene. And at the end where they had to where she puts the blood on his leg. We'll talk about that. It was motivated from scenes like that. Like in a very short time, we built very strong relationships that I, as an audience member, knowing nothing, was really hoping, man, I hope they get to go together on this journey. And I'm assuming they won't be together forever, but I'm assuming that they'll go off and do their own thing. And that just wasn't the case. I want to talk about Kathleen and the characters in Kansas City.
Can you, before you go into that, can I
go ahead.
bring up one other thing? So like,
please do.
Just it's something a little different from the game compared to the show. And I know we've talked about this, how there's some things that through storytelling with a game, you can get more information that you can't always tell in a show, and like vice versa. So when they're down in like the tunnels, that room they find, how with all the drawing on the walls and how, and how it was drawn like a castle to go into. Well, so that kind of bit is actually in the games, but you're told that story through notes you find. And so like that, the picture on the wall that someone drew of like the two guys and like our protectors, and it's like Bobby and Ish, or Dave and Ish, or whoever it is. So like that story is basically you find these notes that tell you about Ish. And so Ish was a fisherman. And so like he left and then he was gone for a couple months. So everything was fine when he left. Then he comes back to everything that had happened and the outbreak. And so basically then his story is that then he meets this other family, and then so they start to survive. And so then he brings them to that underground little bunker he had that he built. And then to like thought like he let the kids draw on there. And so like as to capture the kids' imagination, that's why they drew it as like a castle as the entrance, because castles are fortifications.
Sure.
But then the reason why that's empty is someone accidentally left the door open once, and then all the infected came through and killed everyone that was in there. But that's something in the game you only get through the notes. Whereas it was really cool to see how in a show you didn't go into that story, but you saw pieces of it. Whereas from the game, you just got that from reading and world building. So it was an interesting way of you had a different medium, but you still built that into your story. And I thought
it's fascinating how they're leveraging these two mediums in such a way that's so unique. Like I hear feedback from individuals like you saying, hey, this is a really different way, but it's not messing with the story that I know.
Right, it's still telling the story that needs to be told, just in
Yeah.
a slightly different way, and so, like,
Using maybe
that's kinda
different names
cool.
and different scenarios, right?
Right.
Yeah. No, really good. I want to talk about this actress and
Yep.
just the whole Kansas City thing. My only gripe the last 2 episodes has been Mulaney Linsky is not the actress to me. This was a poor acting choice. Her lines are really well written. Her motivation is really well written. She's kind of a jerk. She plays a good jerk, but for whatever reason, I'm not buying that she's the sister. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that she's supposed to be this person that's scary and that Jeffrey Pierce is like, I follow you into battle. I didn't buy it. I loved the last 2 episodes, so I'm going to give them a 6, but I'm going to give her portrayal a 2 out of 6. I have a huge gripe with her. I don't even know how to describe it other than like, I just don't like her. And I don't know why that is. And I've never heard of the actress. It's probably not, I just don't think this was a role for her that I would have put her in. And I just wasn't buying her portrayal of these huge, massive lines. For instance, in the action set piece, oh, you think you should give up the world for this kid, that everybody should move over for this kid? That's an incredibly big foreshadowing line, I'm assuming, in the show. I would have liked to see a better actress portray that. I really think she didn't sell it. Again, the writing is tremendous. That's a great line. It's pretty crazy to hear they're just kids and they'll die. Kids die every day. That, again, really jarring line. But for some reason, just my personal flavor, Melanie Linsky just isn't working for me. Not working for
And
me. What
that's
was your thoughts on her as an actress?
well, that's something, 'cause I don't remember if it was an article I was reading or somewhere they were talking about that as well. Part of the reason they went into that with her is like I think part of the motivation of her specifically was that they wanted to give it a person that's a nondescript, like it's not this powerful like it's a person you wouldn't expect to be in that role,
Sure.
and so that was kind of what they were going for. I think what I was hearing too, like she's new on the scene, like she hasn't had a ton of stuff. I don't remember. I think she's from New Zealand, I think. But like she doesn't. I don't think she's had a ton of big stuff. But I think they were kind of going from the route of like this isn't the person you'd expect leading the resistance, but
Sure.
or, in that position. But yet it was kind of that person that like here they are, and so I think they were kind of going from that aspect of it's not this cool. It's not your like you'd look at it and you'd think, oh, Perry's the leader, the cool
Yeah.
guy with the big beard,
Sure.
but
Sure. Sure. No,
like that gives it off, but
I understand where they're going with the character.
right,
I
it maybe could have
understand.
been delivered better.
I think the delivery just wasn't there. I think I just did not buy that she had experienced what she had experienced. I just got the vibe of a substitute teacher who is a jerk. That was the vibe I got. And I don't think it's even on Melanie Linsky. I think it's just, I just don't think you were a good fit for the role. I think it should have been somebody else. Nothing personal to her. I don't think she's a bad actress. I think she delivered what she needed to get done. I would have liked to have somebody a little more menacing there. And I do
That's fair.
also understand the point you're making. It's supposed to be a not
A nondescript person there, like
typecast.
it's
Yeah,
right.
I'm with you. I got it. If there's guys with AK-47s looking at the mom, the soccer
Right.
mom, I got the vibe. I'm picking up on that. It just didn't work for me. It never worked for me, and I just wanted to make a point for that. I don't really understand fully why it didn't work for me, and I think that either goes to direction or acting, and everything else direction wise is kicking butt. So then my personal thought is it has to be acting. Neither here nor there. That's just my two thoughts. Then we get to the action set piece. So let's talk about before the bloater and all those clickers get there, and even Melanie get not Melanie. Oh my gosh, Kathleen gets there. Forgive me. You have this shootout from the house with the sniper and the old man, and obviously Joel goes around from behind. So also, I owe an apology. I said a couple episodes that I didn't know if Joel was a badass. Found that out. We're good now. So just for those that were like, oh, I think it was Isaac that tweeted the clip of me saying that. I'm like, should we tell him? Like, yeah, no, you don't need to tell me. I saw it now. We're good. That was such a video game moment, Zane.
100%.
It felt like I was playing a video game watching that. So well done. And for him to go in there and just the standoff with the old man, just the don't do it.
Yep, just
Then
put
all
it
you hear is the
down.
shot. Oh,
Yep.
so good. So good. What were your thoughts on that scene before we get to the big fight?
Yeah, like that was the only thing leading up to me, or kind of leading up to that, because just from the aspect of someone who's played enough video games and who's been in those situations, like I was just like, okay, he left, and obviously the guy's still shooting at him, he's running, but like there's got to be a part of you in the back of your mind as that old man to know that like he's getting closer to the house. I should probably pay attention. Like clearly he's coming towards me. He's running towards me. So that was one of those things in those
But
situations.
then
I'm
they
like,
nailed it. I thought the same thing. But then they're like, he's stalling. That's all it
he's
is.
stalling,
He was
right?
stalling.
It
So the
explains it,
motivation made complete sense.
right? But you don't find that out till he actually gets up there and they're on the radio that, oh, we're almost
Oh,
there. But like that was the point. Like he was delaying them. He wasn't trying to kill them. And then you're like,
no.
oh, but then yeah, you get that situation of it separates them. So now he's watching everything that's happening through a rifle scope. Like he's not actually down there to help, and that
Is that a
just
scene in the
adds to the
game?
drama.
Like, is that a scene in the game where he's sniping and protecting Ellie from up top?
Not right there, because in the game they're not even in Kansas City for this whole thing. They're in
Sure.
Pittsburgh. So like the show has bumped that up in the timeline. So in the game, all this kind of happens like they get attacked as they're running through like the tunnels.
Mm,
So this was kind of its own thing. If I'm remembering correctly, this is kind of its own piece of storytelling, because in the game it still has there's a scene where at the end as they're trying to get out, they have to avoid like a spotlight. That's
sure.
kind of, I guess, the house spotlight. It's the similar whatever. But yeah, in the game, it's as they're going through the tunnels and then they fight, and then that's where Sam ultimately gets bit and everything. But it's as they're running through the tunnels, like it's not the above part. So they kind of
Sure.
flip that, but like it worked for the story. Like I have no complaints with that at all.
It was so good. And then to see him just snipe off those clickers one
Yeah.
by one was great. So we get the Kansas City, what is their title as a people?
I so like well technically like that's not in the game either. They're just like I don't know if you want to call them the resistance or
Resistance,
freedom
sure.
fighters, whatever. Like they overthrew the Fedra and they were controlling the town. I don't know if they specifically had a name even from the games. I think they were just the people that overthrew Fedra.
Yeah, when they showed up, I was like, how on earth are they getting out of this?
Right.
I legit in my brain did not have an understand. I was like, Henry's going to die and they're going to escape. How
Right.
are they going to escape? I don't know, but they're going to escape. Like, this isn't the end. We've got too many episodes to go. But then the clickers show up and everybody dies. Again, I thought these characters were going to be here the whole season. I thought Kathleen and what's the other guy's name? The guy with the gun, forgive me.
Perry.
Perry. I thought they were there
Perry.
the whole way. I was like, what? They're dead? You just gave me all this emotional buildup for them to die? All right, I'm cool with it. And don't get me wrong, I was thrilled that Kathleen died. Couldn't have been more thrilled. That was a very, very fulfilling death in the context of these stories. But you get the creepy scene with the kid in the car. You get Sam. You essentially watch the scene where he gets bit and Henry trapped under the car. But man, the Pedro Pascal just shooting these bad boys off one by one. And then the bloater. Tell our audience that hasn't seen this show or played this game before. Talk about bloaters. What are they?
So the bloaters is technically like the stage 4 of the evolution of once as the cordyceps like infects someone. So basically is you got like your regular infected or the runners, that's like stage 1. Your stage 2 is the stalkers, stage 3 is the clickers, stage 4 is the bloater. And so the bloater is basically like the biggest, strongest, like it's not fast, so it's a very, different from the early stages, but like the fungus is basically completely taken over the body. And so it still hunts and everything via clicking like the clickers, but it is basically gone. So now it's not fast because it doesn't have the human body, but like the human body then has basically it grows external like fungus, if you will, and it almost creates like
Crazy.
armor.
Yeah.
It creates like an armor, and so they're basically like tanks now.
How
So
can you
they're
kill him? How do you kill him? That was my first question.
So in the game, you have to burn them. A lot of fire,
Sure, that
or
makes
the
sense. Yeah.
other one is you need like armor piercing rounds to like
Oh
actually
my
pierce,
word.
because that's how tough they are. And so that's why, like in the game, that is the big, like, you need to run from these if you have to be incredibly well prepared to fight these things.
Wow.
And so there are multiple sections in the game where like you really can only run from it. That is the furthest advancement of the infection. It's the strongest, and yeah, like we saw in the, like, it is the most intimidating. Like it is just gonna come at you, and like your bullets aren't gonna do a whole lot. Like,
If they do a third game, Zane, do you think they'll add on to the bloaters? Like I'm not familiar with what happens, but there's time that advances after the first one, and I'm assuming there would be time that advanced after the second one. Do you think they'd make a fifth stage where it like can
so
fly or move a
no,
little faster?
so
What are you thinking?
so technically there is a fifth stage, but not really. So it's basically the big bad. Now, granted, the big bad, if you will, of part two, the second game, it gets dubbed the Rat King. And so what that is basically the spores and stuff. It mutated in like a small. I think if I remember right, it's in a smaller, like, confined area. And so the Rat King is basically, they a bunch of them fused together. So it's like a bloater, a
Wow.
clicker, and they basically, the fungus morphed them all together.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's not technically a fifth stage because it was in kind of like a certain set of circumstances that created it. Whereas with the bloater, like, it automatically will become a bloater if it doesn't die, because it's like the infected are that they are considered the runners for like the first like 2 days, and then I think the stalkers is from like a week to a year, and then clickers are after like a year to 3 years, and then I think a bloater forms after like 4 years.
Wow.
So like that bloat,
So the
like,
bloater's like
it's,
one of the first people that get infected essentially in
yes,
Kansas City.
it's been there for a long time. Yeah.
Wow. Crazy. Really excited about that lore. Hadn't really processed. I mean, I'd seen a shot of it in the promotional material, but hadn't
Right.
processed when that creature was going to get there.
Right. And I thought that was a cool review because, like, in the game, and that's why it, like, there were some changes, and that's why some people were like, could this have been done different? So, like, in the game, the first time you see a bloater is with the Bill arc. So, granted, they changed everything with the Bill and the whole Frank thing, but like, when you go to find Bill and you go through all that bit of what we got in episode 3, like, that's actually when you first come across a bloater in the game.
Sure.
But this, they were like, okay, we're going to tell the, change the Bill arc. And so then they brought it into this. It didn't have any less of an impact. It was still very much like, oh my goodness, here's this thing that we don't know what it is, but it's just we need to run from it. So it still had that impact. But yeah, in the
It works for the
game,
narrative of the show too.
right, it fits in the narrative. But yeah, in the game, the bloaters are revealed much earlier.
Jeez. That's awesome. It's a great way to kind of zig out of that really
Right.
high tension moment. I loved at the beginning of your review too when you had articulated there's all these human problems, there's all these human tensions, and then the reality kicks in again for everybody that they're in a zombie apocalypse with fungus trying to kill them.
Yes. And that's ultimately, that's something that's always present throughout the games, or through the game and everything. It's just, you, and I think that's, like, I was a big Walking Dead fan too, and like as the series went on, I think that's something that kind of they lost touch with the Walking Dead. It became so much more focal point on humans, and granted, I get that there's a message in there, but like zombies kind of became the side character. Whereas like with this, it reminds you that, like, no, you still need to pay attention to the infected. Like, you're
Yeah.
going to have the human problems, but ultimately, it's still the infected's world.
The map goes through the infected.
Yes.
Everything
And
else is secondary. And I mean the characters are proving it. Every side character to this point has died.
right. And that's, I think, was what was an interesting kind of a juxtaposition on that, because so in the games, I mean, Bill doesn't die at the end of the games, but I
Sure.
understand their point of episode 3 of showing a story that, like, hey, someone kind of took it in their own hands, kind of that love story. Cause like through the rest of this stuff, like, it doesn't stop even with what we had through episode 5. Like, you're reminded that, like, life is fleeting. Like,
Yeah.
anyone can die. And so like, I can, looking back on episode 3, I can understand more of, hey, we wanted to have one episode of kind of more of a positive look on that.
Yeah.
Whereas, because like you're gonna get a whole lot of the other way
Yeah, the
throughout the rest of
context
this
is
series.
way more understanding now in hindsight 2020 why they did it the way they did.
Right.
Makes a
Right.
lot more sense, yeah. And I was critical of it. And I still probably wouldn't give it a higher rating, but I understand and respect the decision, and
Right.
I'm okay with that. And you know what? Not every show is perfect, but doggone it, this one is pretty good so far. This I'm getting like Mandalorian vibes from this one, Zane. Like it's funny because like Pedro was in that too, but like it's a little deeper than that. It's like, wow, this is fresh, this is new, but it's something old. It's the
Right.
genre is old, but it's a fresh spin on it that I enjoy, and I don't feel like I'm getting the shaft, and there's more to come.
Right. And I think that harkens back to just the fact that like when you have a really good story and you can still tell it well, like that still shines through. And that's something I even said on like the first episode review. This is one of the greatest stories like of a video game that, like I've played. Like it's not like my favorite game or anything, but like this is one of the best stories you can play because it's so well done and it's so powerful in everything you go through with this game. So like I recommend everyone play the game, but like and then so now as we're getting this show out, watch the show because they're hitting all the same notes. So like everything you're feeling and everything you're saying about the show, like it's the game is the exact same way. And so
Well, I
I
mean,
love
we
that they still carried this over.
great transition to Henry and Sam. You get this moment of life where you feel like, hey, there's a future here, and then all of a sudden Sam articulates the line, if you're bit, are you a monster still on the inside? And the beautiful scene of Ellie having this information of my blood is medicine, which was I thought was a really beautiful line. And she puts the blood on his leg, and he asks her to stay up with him. And the haunting scene the following morning where he attacks her, and Henry makes decisions so fast. It was so human. Such a human scene. It was his instinct was pick the gun up because he knew Joel would shoot him immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But instinctually he knew it had to be him because he's given everything to this point as a character for this person. So he's like, I've got to be the one. And honestly, I know he felt guilt about it, but I think he shot him to put him out of his misery. I think that was the
Oh,
motivation.
well, right, and that's part of what the deeper thing is. There is like, not only because you're infected and is attacking Ellie and everything, but just like this is your responsibility, and
Yes.
it's also that like it's your responsibility to end it so that they don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Which
it's
is
just
a
like
twist I've never looked at in this. I mean, I guess we've seen it in zombie movies. Hey, shoot me when it's over. Or like, I mean, we watched we watched last week Resident Evil. It happened in Resident Evil, right? It's
yeah,
like that. That's a
yeah,
conversation in that movie. I think I just thought it was a very great twist, but also an incredibly jarring moment. It was so fast. It was so fast intentionally, and there was no word said. It was just give me the gun and then
yeah.
bang, and it was. Oh my gosh, just excellent acting. This is Lamar Johnson's moment. He deserves awards for this episode, in my opinion. This
Oh
is
yeah, he was
really
phenomenal.
good. Really good. I know people were really high on the Frank and Bill actors. I think Lamar Johnson, excuse me, just stole the show. I think this is a tremendous job, and wow, what a scene. And this is the episode also I'll give credit for. I believe this is the episode Bella Ramsey has officially put her stamp on this character.
Oh yeah,
She was really good in this, and I think she has a bright future in this industry.
yeah, I can
Yeah,
agree with
she's
that.
great. This is very good. Any last thoughts on it? I thought you really captivated. I think what the show is earlier with your thoughts, though.
No, not really. Like I'm excited to see, as things keep unfolding. 'Cause, yeah, it was like I knew what was coming with this episode, and it was like, all right, if they're gonna keep going with what the game, like this is gonna be a heavy one. And so as we continue on, like you're gonna have heavy moments too, but like I said, as long as they keep hitting the same strides and same notes, we're in for a fantastic show. So I'm ready for episode 6 already.
Well, there you go. We're gonna head into little bits.
Little bits.
Haven't done this in a while.
It's been a
We're
hot
not
minute.
gonna. It has been a hot minute since we have like a whole segment dedicated
Yeah.
to this. So just a heads up for those that are like, hey, why aren't you talking about Ant-Man Quantumania? Make sure you subscribe to the Patreon and you can hear our thoughts. We spend about 10-15 minutes talking about predictions. We talk about what we think about the Council of King. We talk about what we think is going to happen to Scott Lang in that. It's really good stuff and always a treat. We give Zane a hard time on the show, but I always like talking comics with Zane. He knows his stuff. He's got great context and history. Don't miss out on that. You want some bonus content, go check it out. For Little Bits this week, there's some interesting rumors getting thrown around. And one in particular really caught our eye. And I wanted to chat with you about this, Zane, because it makes a lot of sense. And it also, to me, gives credence to how do you make Secret Wars the end game of this whole thing. And if you've listened to our show before, we've talked, I believe all of us pretty much subscribe to we're going to see all the OG Marvel characters come back under the sun for one big thing. Maybe a couple characters are omitted. I think Zane would throw his chair if at least Nicolas Cage is not there for Ghost Rider,
Ugh,
right?
please.
We need a Ghost Rider at least in that
It-
group. But the rumor right now is that the universe that Doctor Strange traveled into with Wanda, I believe it's 868. I'm not 100% sure on the number. I could be wrong on that. But that there's another member of the Illuminati that wasn't killed and that is going to be really upset and is going to cause our incursions. And that is going to be none other than Robert Downey Jr. The rumor, allegedly, is that Robert Downey Jr. will be returning to play the villain and stand opposite of our heroes on the opposite side as the main villain, and probably with a onslaught of former villains and new villains that are maybe current actors that are in different suits or old actors or all the above. I don't really know. So yeah, your thoughts on this rumor, because I thought we talked about this pre-show in our group chat, but I didn't get to hear your thoughts, and I'm glad you were the only one that didn't say anything. What are your thoughts on this? Is there credence to this rumor?
Um, I guess all rumors could have some merit to it. I don't think it would be the huge focal point. I think you could get some pieces to it, or you might get some allusions to it, but I just feel like we're moving on from that a little bit. The only thing I've heard from like going along with that is like if you've this is this other universe's Iron Man, so like just do the plot twist of like make it like Tom Cruise because that was like
That's
the
the other.
original, right? That was
Yes,
the original bit. Like just make it someone else. But I was just like, well, you're not gonna bring in Tom Cruise for like you're not gonna build that into the universe. Like I just don't see that as a continuation. I feel like that would be, I don't want to put it as minuscule as like an end credit scene, but I feel like this is one that's going to just kind of stay on the rumor mill. I don't think this is something that's going to be fully fleshed out.
yeah, I'm interested. The idea is fascinating to me
Right.
because what's my we had this conversation, Zane, before our show existed. This show hadn't existed. You and I would have this conversation. I would always say, "What do you do after Endgame?" And we didn't know it was called Endgame at the time, but I always said, what do you do after Infinity War? Like, how do you do this without jumping the shark? How do you execute this? To me, that feels like a great bookend to all of this. That allows you to go ultimates on the bit. That allows you to say, hey, we're going to do kind of what DC appears to be doing right now, which is a soft restart, keep some actors, lose some actors. But also you could just say, hey, Kevin Feige's like, I did what I needed to do. I'm done. I'm going to pass it off to my people. They're going to restart this hard start and go from the beginning and start from the OG Avengers cast, maybe with a brand new X-Men team, and really build off of that. I don't know what the direction is, but I'll tell you what, Zane, if Robert Downey Jr. signs to a 2 to 3 movie deal
Oh, it's
and is
happening.
playing Iron Man, an evil Iron Man, like a superior Iron Man in
Oh,
that white armor, because that's
oh
the armor
yeah.
he's got to be in, right?
Right.
I'm telling you what, man, it's going to be difficult for people not to get excited about that.
That would be very cool. Um, I think that's something we're just gonna have to pay attention to see if that news comes out. But my only thing of not wanting that to happen is because I feel like that pushes things away. Because like what they if they did that with Spear Iron Man, I feel like then we're not going to get Doom, or at least we're not going to get Doom until much later. And I feel
Sure.
like the bigger thing would be to get Doom rather than bring an evil Iron Man. I feel like Doom would be a more impactful villain that you could build around and keep moving with, whereas bringing back Tony Stark to be an evil Iron Man, that's a movie or two, whereas Doom can carry a phase. Like Doom can be your next Thanos, you know. Doom has
I
more
think
staying power.
I think Doom for sure can carry it, as well as Galactus. I also think the
Right.
Beyonder is a candidate. I think there's multiple candidates. I think Doom feels to me like a better fit for X-Men, where you could do a true Secret War movie, like a secret, like Fury sends in some, you know, that arc, you know, the arc I'm talking about, where he
Right.
sends in the spies, he sends in Daisy. Daisy's the only one that has recollection of it. Then he mind wipes everybody, brings them back, and then Latveria is attacking all their families.
Right.
That could be a really great arc to do as well.
It
I
could be, or if
but
just from the classic standpoint of just give us this tie-in with the Fantastic Four, but I just feel like you need more world building than just be like, here's Fantastic Four and here's Doom. Like I feel like there's got to be more depth there, but I just feel like that's a bigger storyline. Like I would be very disappointed if they just like, hey, we're gonna use Doom, but then he only gets a movie or two. Like that's someone you need to
no,
dedicate
he
time
will
to.
get he's going to get multiple movies, because if they were cool with just one, they would have done it already.
Right.
They're done already.
It's fair.
This goes in the category of nerd news. So I know my future self, I'll have already put the bumper there. Werewolf by Night producer Steven Broussard has teased there are plans for future of horror characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is your jam, Zane.
Yes.
This is
Absolutely.
your wheelhouse.
Give it
Who
to
do you
me.
want? Who do you want this to be?
Well, I mean, even still, like it's already been said before. Like, I need Blade. I need Ghost Rider. Like, give me the Midnight Suns. I know it's been something that's been talked about before. I want the Midnight Suns. Like, I think that is the perfect thing. Of even if it's just going the route of these one shots, I would like it bigger than even that if you want to go with just that as the introductions. But I think you have enough here, and especially since you're going multiverse, and especially since you're opening up the possibility of these realities, and it's just like that's who the Midnight Suns go against, because that's the whole spooky reality, if you will. That's who they're fighting against. So like bring in some of those properties that is kind of on that darker side, and I think that would be fantastic. Give it so yeah,
Yeah,
give me the
no.
Midnight Suns.
Midnight Suns feels like a layup. I hope they fight vampires.
Oh right, absolutely. Like
I think it'd be really cool to see a world where vampires take over, where it's like it's kind of a micro season where it's like a year almost, where the whole
well,
Marvel Cinematic Universe gets or the whole Marvel Earth gets taken over. You go off Earth for your stories. So you go, Nova. You go Silver Surfer. Maybe Fantastic Four's off planet. You do some things off planet. Do that, or I mean, the other one is the Marvel Zombies, which has been
right,
that's happening as a cartoon version. But down the line, do you go, you know what? Let's we're in a multiverse. Let's just do a different universe and
right.
make one Marvel
Because that
zombie movie every 3 to 4 years.
right. Well, because that's something that's I think a lot of people are less familiar with. Because like I think is it Guggenheim that did it, but like there's a Blade run where that's the entire run. Basically, is you have a bunch of vampires and familiars, like they infiltrated Shield because they're trying to make sure the stuff gets set up that they can become
Yes,
immortal.
yes, I
And that is
remember
a
that. Yes, yes, yes.
fantastic run.
That's a
Like
great run too, and that's how you can kind of do the Winter Soldier stuff
exactly,
as
because
well.
that can be
Great
kind of a
pull.
that could be kind of just a one shot thing that they're
Yeah,
hunting this, these vampires that infiltrated, Shield or whatever. Like
you could treat it almost as scrolls too, which we haven't talked about scrolls in a
right,
long time. Scroll watch on the Infinity Bros podcast is like
that's kind of
our
just been
side
in the
hobby.
yeah, that's kind of been
Feels like
like
our
the
side hobby.
back pocket.
Yeah,
That's
we
that
always have
that's that Blue Beetle card to pull out randomly.
we always have somebody we think is a scroll on this
Oh
show.
yeah,
Let
you
me tell
have
you.
to.
Okay, so um the other little bits, so the little bit earlier about Robert Downey Jr. that came out. I want to make sure I credit these guys. The Cosmic Circus Multiverse Podcast. I'm gonna actually put a link to that in the show notes if you want to go check it out. If you're somebody that wants to hear this stuff from the horse's mouth, there it is. Here's the other stuff, Zane, for you that they said. There is another movie between Fantastic Four and Kang Dynasty. The project where the multiverse truly becomes the central broader point, this is all little bits, okay, is this will happen in Deadpool 3. So then that will lead into the next Avengers movie. There's also rumors right now that Deadpool 3 is going to have Mobius in it. Allegedly, Patrick Stewart is on hold. He's confirmed he said that. I'm saying allegedly, but he's pretty much said that. And there's a rumor going around, this is a true little bit, that it's going to show the scene that Logan references, which comes from the Old Man Logan arc, where he essentially kills everybody in the X-Men mansion. Is that a scene you think Disney's got the guts to do? Or do you have a hard time believing that? I personally, I'm going to go first. There's no way that's happening, in my opinion. But it would be fascinating to see in a multiverse movie.
Right. It would be fascinating, but I don't think they would do that, because if you're putting it in the scope of a Deadpool movie, that doesn't fit any of that narrative of what you're coming from a Deadpool movie. Of just like, because even if it sets up for that, like that would be kind of that point of just like, I just don't see how you fit that in, kind of that slapstick but yet serious type of character Deadpool is. I don't know how you would fit in such a huge, impactful gut punch scene in that movie unless you wanted to turn Deadpool into the kind of that serious character. And I don't think Marvel or Disney would have any interest in doing that, because that's not what people pay to see Deadpool be, you know.
Deadpool's going to be rated R. They've said that. And so the only reason that I think it could work is because of the Deadpool movie itself. It's the only movie where you can take that swing in the Marvel universe. So it fits, in my opinion, to that movie. I just don't think they're going to do it.
Yeah.
But I think
I would have to agree. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, if it does, man, they will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it could get definitely like alluded to, but I don't think we're going to see it. Like,
but if it happens, is it a win or a loss? Because I think it really depends on how they do it. If they go like the true Mysterio route, or they go like, stay comic canon, it could be really well done. But it could also be done in poor taste and
I think
kind of ruin the legacy of Logan.
I think that's kind of the bigger thing of like, why you don't even mess with that, of ruining that legacy of Logan, of how good that movie. Like, there's just some things, just let it be.
Let it be.
Like
our final little bit as we begin to close out our show. And Zane, you were big on the Darkhold early. You were one of the early people in our WandaVision stuff that was saying the Darkhold was going to be part of it. Actually, if you go back way a long time ago, you were the first person on this show to bring up the Darkhold in regards to WandaVision. The final rumor, and this is the one that I think is such a great, it makes complete sense. The Darkhold will be a big plot point in Agatha. I think this is the reason that show is getting made, is what they're saying. A Kang variant wrote the Darkhold. Because the Darkhold describes Wanda as the Nexus being, she actually isn't, because we know she has variants. So this was all built as a lie, so that Kang could essentially begin taking measures against Wanda in the event that she tries to fight him, because he knows she would be the biggest threat essentially on this planet. Are you subscribing to this little bit that he wrote the Darkhold and it's this big master plot to basically neutralize Wanda, so that way the Avengers have to find a different spin on how to beat him?
My knee-jerk reaction is to say no, but I guess that's also me being hopeful of everything we've been talking about with Midnight Suns and everything, because like the Darkhold ties so well into all of that. And I feel like that could definitely be a plot point of have Kang write it and all that, but I feel like that closes too many doors.
Sure,
I feel
good
like
point.
You could tell the story of everything Kang's doing, but also set up everything with the Darkhold through Chthon and through all that kind of the magic side. Because like, we're getting Agatha her own series. We're getting like that whole side of Marvel that's never really come out, and even a lot of, I suppose, even just mainstream comic readers probably doesn't necessarily delve more into that darker side, because sometimes that's kind of the niche side of Marvel Comics a little bit. But like, leave those doors open, because like you could go that route of the Darkhold's power. You go, you know, with Lilith trying to bring about the Midnight Sun. You can go bring in everything from, you know, Blackheart, Mephisto, like all that
Sure.
ties into the Darkhold, that
I
ties
mean,
into the old gods,
allegedly
that
the
ties into Midnight Suns. Like,
sure. Allegedly the Hood is going to be in Ironheart. So like, why would you try to, which if the Hood is in it, then Mephisto's going to be part of it as well. There's a little bit rumors of that. Why would you pigeonhole and bottleneck these major characters that are, I mean, think of Werewolf by Night and all the
right.
stuff they could do from that. I'm with you on it. I think there's a way to say that Kang wrote it without hurting those things.
Possibly. I guess I just don't know how they would, or
Yes.
I
And
guess that would be
with all due respect, phase 5, and this is phase 4, and this is where you were right earlier when we talked about phase 4. You talked about this in the pre-show, excuse me. Phase 4 has not felt great. And I think part of that is because of writing. And I think they did
right.
not establish these multiverse rules well at the beginning. I think they will course correct that in things like Loki 2 and probably even in this movie coming up this week, Quantumania.
Right. I mean, for all we know, too, you could even go run like, hey, maybe there's a variant of Kang that went the whole magic route, that went and kind of
Good
opened that
point.
whole thing up. Like,
Good
you
point.
could totally
He
do that.
learned. Yeah.
Right. Like, you could totally go that route.
Sure. It wouldn't be crazy. It wouldn't be a crazy thought. Maybe he has the cloak of levitation and he is the sorcerer supreme.
Right.
Maybe that's the route they go. I think that, or maybe he's the Scarlet Witch, right? I mean, I don't know. There's ways to kind of work.
Right.
I think there's a way to write it. My hope is that they get the right person to do it, because
right.
we really thought, and I want to make sure I get the writer's name right. I'm holding for a moment. Who wrote this? I'm going to edit it later. I'm really hoping that Michael Waldron is not that guy, because Michael Waldron did not do that well in Doctor Strange. I know that he did Loki season 1, excuse me, and maybe he'll be better in Loki season 2, but he did not do that well in the movie. So I just hope they can kind of iron out that stuff and get those mistakes corrected. But it'll be interesting. That's it for Little Bits. These are not for sure things. These are just rumors, but take them with a grain of salt, everybody. Take them with a grain of salt. There's probably a lot more false things in there than true things. So. Zayne, thank you for taking time to be on today, and
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed spending time with you.
Absolutely. It's always a lot of fun, you know, get to chat about things we're liking to watch, and yeah, good little
Did you say
hangout.
liking or liking?
Like liking, like things we're
Okay.
liking to watch, you know.
Okay.
Very Minnesotan there. I just kind of combined
Sure.
words. So,
sure. Yeah, you. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your night, Zayne. Thank you so much for swinging by. Thank you, listeners, wherever you listened, however you listened. Thanks for making us part of your podcast experience. If you liked us, leave us a review on iTunes. We'd love for you guys to do that. I got told today it doesn't help our algorithm, but it makes me feel better. So make me feel better and leave a review. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and TikTok, where you can see Robbie's beautiful face and see all the nerd news stuff. James Gunn retweeted us, guys. Come on now. Why wouldn't you want to be following us on Twitter? Make sure you're doing that. We love you guys 3000. We'll see you soon. See ya. Bye.
Bye.